sitting together bragging about how they had given their new wives duties. Terry had married a woman from Guyana and bragged that he had told his wife she needed to do all the dishes and housework. He said that it took a couple of days, but on the third day, he came home to a clean house and dishes were all washed and put away. Jimmy had married a woman from Grenada. He bragged that he had given his wife orders that she was to do all the cleaning, dishes, and cooking. He told them that the first day he didn't see any results, but the next day it was better. By the third day, his house too was clean, the dishes were done, and he had a huge dinner on the table. The third man married a Bahamian girl. He boasted that he told her that her dishes will be kept clean, the house clean, laundry, ironing twice a week, lawns mowed, windows clean, and hot meals on the table for every meal. He said the first day he didn't see anything. The second day, he still didn't see anything. By the third day, most of the swelling had gone down, and he could see a little out of his left eye. It's a hard room. It's a hard room. Anyhow. So welcome, one and all, to the 21st of March Distinguished Lecture Series, in which the topic will be Construction Project Cost Management. I now call Ms. Forbes to the podium to introduce our guest speaker, who was so anxious to start that he jumped up before he was introduced.
A pleasant good afternoon. Mr. Hugh Jeffrey Anthony Hoford, a bachelor's degree in quantity surveying from Leeds Polytechnic in England, graduated in 1983, member of the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors since 1986. With 30 years underneath his belt, working experience on building, civil engineering, process plant, and offshore platform construction, project administration in Trinidad and Tobago. As a chartered surveyor, he has worked in Trinidad and Tobago for 6 years in the public sector, 12 years in the private sector building cost consultancy, and 12 years on energy sector related projects and operations. He has been here in the Bahamas as Chief Quantity Surveyor in the Quantity Surveyor section of the Department of Public Works for over 3 years. I present to you Mr. Hoford, our Chief Quantity Surveyor.
Thank you, everyone. I want to put us in a context because this is not the first slide. Is not the lecture we're going to do. The first slide is that I want you to remember this is part of a lecture series. This is the third element of the lecture series. And we are doing 2 sets of lectures on pre-contract, basic pre-contract scopes, and basic post-contract scopes. Within the lectures on pre-contract scopes, we should have 6 lectures, maybe 5. We have done risk management. We've done the pre-contract cost planning last year. Those were done last year. And now we're going to do basic tendering documentation and strategies. Yeah? So if you remember, this lecture series was really started to help us to be of one mind in going forward and to make sure that we all know what we are doing, we're all on the same page. It's particularly important for those with lesser experience to understand what we do in terms of basic tendering documentation and strategies in this particular case, and that we are all of the same mind going forward. So let's go ahead with basic tendering documentation and strategies. Today we're going to be in 3 separate areas. We're going to do some just concepts and definitions where we'll understand the legal background of contracts. as well as understanding tendering and procurement, what those things are. We're just going to do some tendering strategies, and we're going to look at how we strategize to go out to tender, right, after having understood what a tender is. And then we're going to be looking at the tender procedures. What are the contents of a tender, tender period, what we do during the tender, receiving the tender, opening the tender, evaluating them, and then how we enter into contract. That's where we are situated in the project stage today. We are not going to be dealing with award of contract, we're not going to be dealing with how we administer the contract. We're not going to be dealing with how we set up for cost planning and so forth, because we've done that already. All right, so this is what we're doing today. I want to open the floor. I want to be open about it. We want you all to ask any questions, but hold your questions till at the end of each slide. Okay? You can raise your hand and I'll answer the question at the end of each slide, so that we go through the slide and we basically see. Some of the slides may be continuing, so it may not be every slide, but you will get the picture once we complete a topic. Okay? So, right, those are the three sets of contents we're going to do. So we're going to go through them fairly quickly, so that you understand what is happening. My source is really the RICS Professional Guidance Note on Tendering Strategies. These, as indicated at the last lecture, these RICS guidance notes are on the shared drive in the quantity surveying section, and they are available to all. The guidance notes gives definitions and so forth, and almost all of the quotations will be from that note. There are one or two quotations which will be mine, and also one of them I got from a RICS online course that I did. So let's start with the legal aspect. Start off, we're underway. You want to understand what are the three main elements of a contract. Anyone? Not a quantity surveyor, please.
Well, first you have to have an offer.
Offer? What? One?
Agreement. And then there has to be acceptance.
Agreement be offered.
Right? That's correct?
Condition.
Conditions. Okay. Alright. Okay, so that's a good answer. As it is, that's a correct answer for the most part, except there's some slight difference in the wording in the last one. There are three main elements and three subsidiary elements that must be established to demonstrate the formation of a legally binding contract. They are, main elements are offer, acceptance, and consideration. That has to be drilled into you. We have to know that off by heart. Offer, acceptance, and consideration. You must have all three to say that you are in a contract. Okay? You must have an offer. That offer must be accepted, and there must be consideration. There must be, I scratch your back if you scratch mine. It's sometimes called a mutuality of obligation, whatever that thing is, right? But in other words, you scratch your back, my back, and I scratch yours, right? I build the building for you, and you pay me the money. Yeah. So, or you know, when you go into a store, contracts are done every day. You all know that, right? Every time you go into the grocery, you enter into a contract. You all know that, right? Yeah. You actually enter into a contract. You take your stuff to the counter. They've invited you to their store, and you take your stuff to the counter, yeah, and you offer to buy this good at the listed price. The consideration is the price. The consideration actually is the price and the good. You want the thing, So you want them to scratch your back by giving you the good, and you will scratch their back by giving them the money. Yeah? Alright, that's a way to look at it. So there's a mutuality of obligation. Once you put the thing down on the counter, you've made an offer. The acceptance comes when you pay. And they say, okay, that's yours. At any time they could say, no, we're not going to sell you that. In theory. Hold on, we're not finished. Hold on. Before we go there. Subsidiary elements, wait a little while. Subsidiary elements are mutual consent, competency and capacity, a written instrument in certain circumstances, and legality. Let's just deal with the first three, okay? And then you can ask the questions. Offer, acceptance, and consideration. An offer is an expression of willingness to contract on certain terms made with the intention that it shall become binding as soon as it is accepted by the person to whom it is addressed, the offeree. An offer is a statement of the terms on which the offerer is willing to be bound. It is the present contractual intent to be bound by a contract with definite and certain terms communicated to the offeree. So you are offering to buy this, and you see the terms there. This is the terms I'm buying it. Right? No, they have all sorts of little legalities inside of there, because if the other person may not accept that, and they will make a counter offer, which you cannot then accept. But that's a different thing. Assuming all goes well, you have offer, acceptance, and consideration, and bam, you have a contract. The acceptance then is a promise or act on the part of an offeree indicating a willingness to be bound by the terms and conditions contained in an offer. Right? So you accept the terms and conditions contained in the offer, and therefore you have contract because you have consideration, which is the promise or act on the part of an offeree indicating a willingness to be bound by the terms and conditions contained in the offer. So you intend to do that. That's it. That's good. I intend to do that. I'm good. The consideration does not have to be actual. It can be intentional. Yeah. So the consideration doesn't have to be actual. So you don't have to pass the money right away. If you do pass the money right away, the consideration is actually actual. But if you sign that you will pay, that's enough consideration. Okay?
Your analogy supposed implies that the contract doesn't necessarily have to be in writing.
Correct. We'll deal with that. Yes. Any?
I noticed you bring contract into play, and I noticed you use an example of not the actual contract as in making an offer and the terms of a contract where you come to an agreement on that. But I noticed you put out the contract and the terms of the sale for good act, right? And what I'm trying to figure, I don't think it was a good example to use, because you look at contract, it has many areas that example you used wasn't, I don't think it was a good example.
Well, you're right to some extent, because what happens, you're right to some extent, but at the same time, what he's saying is that the example I use comes under legislation, because there's a Sale of Goods Act, okay? And that's true. But the Sale of Goods Act still recognizes that there is a contract and that there's offer, acceptance, and consideration.
Yeah, we understood that.
Right.
But that part of the contract do not fall within the Sale of Goods Act.
Yes, it
Because
does.
it's an open contract for tender. Sale of Goods Act comes in when you buy it or selling something.
Yeah, but when you buy and sell something, that's still a contract. You can take the person to court. If
I'm not arguing with you, I'm just saying I don't think it was a good
well,
example
okay,
to use
but
for this.
right, well, okay. Yeah, okay. Well, it 6 or 1/2 a dozen the other. Yeah, well, it's not just a matter of opinion. The fact is, a contract comes into existence on every day. If you walk in a taxi, you are actually engaging in a contract with the taxi driver. there may be some legislative issues that will also come into play, but the fact is you are entering into a contract with offer, acceptance, and consideration, which are the three main elements. You have some subsidiary elements which I don't want to dwell too much on, but are important. There must be mutual consent. You can't hold up a gun to a man's head or bribe him or whatever and enter into a contract. And then you have competency and capacity. You have to be of a certain age and so forth, and you have to be of sane mind, or that might exclude a lot of contracts. You have to be of sane mind and so forth, Also, it must be a written instrument in certain circumstances. That would apply, especially with legislative issues, especially, for example, land sales and certain other issues. Go quickly. Generally, the law assumes that mutual or competent party freely consents to a contract, or if consent was obtained due to duress or because of the exercise of undue influence, a party's consent is considered involuntary and the contract is void. Each contractual party must be a competent person having legal capacity. So you must be a legal person. In the government, for example, if you don't have a business license, you don't stand a chance. Why? Because the business license establishes you as a legal person. You're not just a human person. A person is you can be a human person, and you, as a person, you can contract with another individual, or that's a consideration. But you can also be a legal person. And once you have a business license in the Bahamas and in other countries have this situation as well, then you are a legal person. Yeah. So you must be a person, right? Juristic person is what the lawyers call it. An agreement is formed and offers accepted. The parties must have an intention to be legally bound. To be valid, the agreement must have both proper form and unlawful object. Right? Also for guarantees and warranties, there must be a written instrument. Right? A contract is only enforceable if the activity in the contract is legal. A person cannot contract with someone to commit assault, murder, or another criminal act. It won't be upheld in the courts.
Even though they call them contracts.
Yes.
Illegal contract.
So I want to deal with invitation to treat. Before you enter into a contract, you have a situation where you're invited to treat. The very fact that there's a grocery store there, and you have advertisements and so forth. Those are things inviting you to treat. Invitation to treat has no role in the contract except it invites people to enter into offer, acceptance, and consideration. So an invitation to treat is very important. There are complex issues which I don't want to go into here, but just to say that it is not an offer, it is just an indication for people to willingness to enter into the contract, right? So in a sense, it's a pre-offer communication. They're only intended to solicit offers from people and not intended to result in any immediate binding obligation. So if you see an advertisement that tells you you'll get to heaven if you drink this or buy this or whatever, and all will be well with you, and you want to swallow that, you can't sue them for breach of contract when it doesn't happen. There is no contract, okay? Alright.
So to finish this slide, for what you just mentioned, remember a contract could be issued to an individual, a group of person, or even into the work, right? Like invitation to treat. Invitation to treat, that's why I was telling you before it's beginning, it cannot be matched up with this form of contract. Invitation to treat is when you're offering goods in the store. You cannot compare it with housing or selling generally. That's for offering goods in the store. So invitation to treat really is a contract. It is binding, but not in this light.
Okay.
Do your research.
Well, this is all freely available on Google. Just Google your stuff. But invitation to treat is not an offer. It is clearly not an offer.
It's not an offer in this light, but it's fine in the
There
stock.
are legislated issues in advertisements. So there may be a legislation that you can bring people up, but it won't be a contractual issue.
Could I give you an example?
Yeah, sure.
Just in case, fish versus bell. Fish versus bell is where the guy offer a poison substance, which would fall under the probation of selling poisonous stuff. He sold it. The guy picked it. He sold it. Didn't know it was the stuff that was poison. He went to court. He sued. Bell in his case. Fish goes on the ground that it was an offer, but it falls within the invitation to treat area of law.
Yes, invitation to treat does have a lot of legal issues around it. You're right. It does have a lot of illegal issues around it, and that's why I raised it, because effectively, when we tender, we are inviting an offer, which is an invitation to treat. So a tender is a kind of invitation to treat. Tendering, therefore, anyway, no, let's go on with the thing. So we're going to try and figure out what a tender is now. Right? What is a tender? It is an invitation to treat and an offer. The term tender means an invitation to trade under the terms of an offer. When we invite tenders, we are commencing an invitation to treat so as to obtain an offer under certain terms. Yeah? I want to just quickly go through what the difference between the word tendering is and versus the word procurement. Procurement is the overall act of obtaining goods and services from external sources, and includes deciding the strategy on how these goods are to be acquired by reviewing the client's requirements, time, cost, quality and cost, and their attitude to risk. So that is a simple enough. Procurement is really the generic of tendering. So when we go to tender, we are in the act of procurement. Okay? We're in the procurement process. Yeah? But the procurement process is a whole process that begins way back. You have to design the work, figure out the work. So the whole procurement process, when we go to tender, so that's why the RIBA stages or the AIA, RIBA is Royal Institute of British Architects and AIA is American Institute of Architects. You'll see the tendering or bidding or negotiation stage. The word bid is really an American word for tender. Okay? The Americans will say bid, the British will say tender. Yeah? So, I will continue to say tender. Tendering is the bidding process to obtain a price and offer and how a contractor is actually appointed. In which is how we are applying it in the Ministry of Public Works. We have three main considerations for strategies, right? We have the contractor selection, tender strategy, and the procurement mechanism. The process. Let's look at the contractor selection first. We have three main types of contractor selection. Open tendering, selected tendering, or negotiated tendering. You want to just quickly understand these three things, which I think should be understood by most of you. Open tendering allows anyone to express an interest to tender. The proposed tender opportunities usually advertised in journals or on websites or in newspapers. Selected tendering in the form of a short list drawn up by the project/client team or from a pre-agreed framework approved suppliers list. It is not open to everyone, and the list of suitable contractors is chosen by the project team. Negotiated tendering, sometimes referred to as single source or sole source. This works hand in hand with negotiation as a tender technique. A contractor is selected and then the negotiation process begins. It is basically a short list of one, sometimes two, to some extent. The difference between single source and sole source in most industries now, we distinguish between single source and sole source. Single source is where you are hiring one, when you are negotiating with one person, usually. Some companies actually say two, that you tender to two, and you tender to two, that's a single source to them. But generally speaking, it's when you tender to one, a negotiation with one. That person is selected on a random or who you know basis, or whatever basis. Sole source, on the other hand, is when only one contractor will do. It is used, so in other words, if there's only one contractor doing a particular piece of work that you would like to do, and you can only go to that particular contractor. Let's say you want to supply electricity to your house, and you can only go to BBC. That's a sole source. Yeah, simple. That's a sole source. You can only go to one. He's the sole person doing the work.
The only person providing that service.
Correct. Then we have this. We said before we had contractor selection, tender strategy, and procurement mechanism. So you're looking at the tender strategy now. There are three main types within the tender process, within the contractor selection process. There are three main types of tender strategies you can use. You can use single stage, two stage, or negotiated. The single stage tendering strategy is the invitation to tender documents, where the tender documents are issued to a number of competing contractors who are all given the chance to bid for the project based on identical tender information documentation. Now, of course, you can see that you can use this with open tendering, negotiated, or selected, right? So you have to match your contractor selection with your tender strategy and decide how you working. The advantages of this is simple and transparent and less bureaucracy. The disadvantages is that sometimes it doesn't suit complex projects. You have to be careful because you're not going to get a method statements or whatever. If it's a simple project, you can go out with a single stage, not a problem. I would say most of the projects we have in the Ministry of Public Works are simple projects and are not complex projects, right? Mr. Bigsock and I have worked on some complex projects where we had to do two-stage, right? Or variations of two-stage tendering. A single stage tendering may not be suitable. The official version of two-stage tendering is that where the first stage is to pre-qualify for the project using an inquiry that indicates how the contractor may be suitable to be included for the actual tender. So you're actually doing a pre-qualification of the contractors, and you're not just doing a pre-qualification. You're doing a pre-qualification with a method statement or some kind of understanding of a particular type of work, especially when it's of specialty nature, or where it's a complex project, or where it's a very large project. It's usually issued to bidding contractors at RIBA stage 2 or 3. That's where you reach. In other words, you can try to fast track the project by going out to the first stage of tendering without a scope. You're going out with a basic scope. After you've reached an understanding of the schematic drawings, you understand the scale of the project, and you know it's a complex project. You can go out and get the bidding contractors, and then you go out to tender. You can select the contractors, pre-qualify them. So you go out, you can perhaps use public tendering and get the contractors and get all the contractors to tender. They're not tendering on a scope, they're tendering on a methodology, on a capacity, on availability.